Hello, I'm Stephen Reeder, and welcome to an introduction to British and American literature. Today I'm going to talk about the emergence of American literature and the events that led up to it and what makes it distinctive from British literature. First, I'll start with the colonization of the Americas. The colonization of the American continent dates back to the early 10th century, with North sailors exploring Greenland and what is now known as Canada. Christopher Columbus accidentally landed in the Bahamas and the Caribbean, and being sponsored by Spain, his discovery opened up the Spanish exploration and settlement of parts of North and South America. Next, John Cabot, an Italian explorer, was commissioned by Henry VII of England to sail to the Americas in 1497 to claim land for the crown. He explored parts of Canada and the northern seaboard of the United States. In 1565, the city of St. Augustine, Florida, was one of the first European cities founded by Spain in the United States, and it still exists to this day. Most of the colonies throughout North and South America at this time were temporary bases for depriving the land of its riches. Gold, fur, and other luxury goods were exported back to Europe. By the 17th century, the three big powerhouses of Europe were looking for permanent settlements in North America. These three were Spain, France, and England. On April 10, 1606, King James I of England created two companies to claim land for England as well as establish trade. He called these two companies the Virginia Company of London and the Virginia Company of Plymouth. A famous adventurer and writer was John Smith. He worked for the Virginia Company of London and is considered the forefather of American literature. On his way to the New World, he was charged with mutiny and was to be hanged upon landing in America in 1607. However, he was saved from death when a sealed letter was opened revealing Smith to be one of the leaders of the new colonies. He helped build Jamestown, one of the first permanent English settlements in the Americas and named after James I. He also coined the name New England for the area that was to be settled for the English. New England today incorporates the northeastern states of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Maine. All written records of this period in early American history were due to the writings of John Smith. He wrote great histories, often embellished with great tales of adventure. A description of New England and the general history of Virginia, New England, and the Summer Isles are perhaps his best works. The general history recounts the now famous story of Pocahontas, the daughter of Powhatan, the great chief of all the native tribes in the area. It is written in the third person where Smith himself is presented as a character in the story. The famous rescue of Captain Smith by Pocahontas is a good example of these colonial writings that were so popular. At his entrance before the king, all the people gave a great shout. The Queen of Appamatuck was appointed to bring him water to wash his hands, and another brought him a bunch of feathers, instead of a towel to dry them. Having feasted him before their best barbarous manner they could, a long consultation was held, but the conclusion was, 2 great stones were brought before Powhatan. Then, as many as could laid hands on him, dragged him to them, and thereon laid his head. And being ready for their clubs to beat out his brains, Pocahontas, the king's dearest daughter, when no entreaty could prevail, got his head in her arms, and laid her own upon his to save him from death, whereat the emperor was contented he should live. This, like most of Smith's writing, probably did not happen the way he presented it, since it is not found in the first narrative he published about that incident. Like modern history dramas today, he took liberty to spice up his writing so more people would read it. This made his travels in the New World very popular back in England, and many more explorers followed in search of similar fame and glory. These grand boasts that Smith worked into his travel accounts became more and more popular in the frontier fiction of the time. In fact, it would seem that he started a trend that is now called tall tales, which are action-filled stories set in the American wilderness and filled with exaggeration, humor, and boasts by a lively protagonist. As America was becoming a new world of opportunities where people could recreate themselves, tall tales were ways that the early embodiment of the American dream, which is self-creation, hard work, and self-reliance. These could appeal to all types of audiences. A good example of the tall tale in Smith's The General History is when he went exploring and was attacked by the natives. Smith, being got to the marshes at the river's head, 20 miles in the desert, had his 2 men slain, as is supposed, sleeping by the canoe, whilst himself by fowling sought them victual, who finding he was beset with 200 natives, savages, 2 of them he slew, still defending himself with the aid of a savage his guide, whom he bound to his arm with his garters, and used him as a buckler, yet he was shot in his thigh a little, and had many arrows that stuck in his clothes, but no great hurt, till at last they took him prisoner. It is quite an exaggeration to say he fought 200 natives alone, and even strapping one to his arm as a shield to block all the arrows shot at him. Other well-popular tall tales soon followed. The more popular one was Pecos Bill, who is a cowboy of the West who once rode a tornado like a wild horse. Another one was Paul Bunyan, who is a giant lumberjack who could cut down 10 trees with one swing of his axe. The settlements of Jamestown and the hard work of John Smith and other pioneers paved the way for more settlers to go to the colonies to start a new life. This included the Puritan pilgrims that were introduced in Chapter 2.